right. Hi, Desert Church. Glad to get to be with you today. I'm here with my good friend, Pastor Jack Hamilton. And we had mentioned first weekend of January, State of the Church.
Yeah.
Our plan was to be able to kind of give some updates, a little bit about kind of your long tenure at HDC and just kind of what you're doing now. We didn't get to do that then, but we're doing it today on a video.
We were, Todd, because I was sick.
You were.
I wasn't feeling
sicker
good.
than a dog.
Yeah,
so
we didn't get to do it. Yeah.
Well, let's do that then. So first off, tell a church family a little bit about what your role at HGC has been and how long you've served here.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. I came in 1984, the end of October, but officially November 1, which is 40 years. When you think about 40 years, Todd, Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 years. Moses
40 decades
was 40 years in the wilderness, and Noah had on the ark for 40. So there's a significant number there. But actually, what happened? You guys on the leadership team, I think you were gone at that time, and first round for you. January of 2020, I no longer became the executive pastor. So the last 5 years until, December 31st of this last month, I had a different role. I was a quarter time. And the great thing about that was the leadership team allowed me to still be part of the staff and, created a little income for me. But I kind of became a little bit of an ambassador to other churches and other ministries and stuff like that. So that was kind of fun for me and exciting, still being attached here, but also having a different role. But basically, it's been 40 years, which is a long time. And I think Tom came the end of February of 1984. I came at the end of October of 1984, and we were off and running.
That's amazing. When you think about that longevity and even that longevity together, that's just pretty unheard of for people who don't know church world very well. That's really unique.
Yeah, pretty unusual. Really was.
When you think about the last 4 decades, what would be some of the highlights that come to mind?
There's so many things that kind of pop in my mind, but obviously the most important thing to me that I would consider a highlight is just seeing what God has done and change lives. We've seen people become Christians. We've seen people get baptized. We've seen people kind of dedicate their lives to the Lord, kind of in a lordship way. We've seen marriages changed. We've seen parents turn their lives around and raise their kids the right way. All of those things, to me, have to come at the top when it comes to highlights for me. And I think back to great retreats for our students, summer camps. All of that stuff is just amazing to me, what God has done through some of the efforts of our church. The other thing, maybe it's kind of a different kind of a highlight, but even some of the growth physically. We built the gym in 1988. Before that, Todd, we were doing 6 services. We were doing 2 on Saturday night and 4 on Sunday morning, which was crazy. But it was.
You were younger then.
Yeah, we were younger and more stupid. But it was a great run, and that, and then we got to build a sanctuary about 20 years ago, and then Point Discovery, I don't even know what, 5-7 years ago, somewhere in there, and then. Another thing that was exciting to me was our first campus when we went to Apple Valley. I think that, probably was 16 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And then we did some work with Hesperia. There was a church, the Evangelical Free Church in Hesperia, that we worked together for, 6 months or 9 months and actually had a merger, and we adopted them, and that's our Hesperia campus. Those were really kind of highlights for me. The other thing that's kind of maybe an unusual highlight, but Todd, I am just so thankful for our broader influence. And when I start thinking about, the 40 years and some of the guys that were part of our team that are gone now, I was counting up. I think we have 8 guys now that are senior pastors. I think we have 5 guys that are executive pastors in different churches. And I would say this, and you would agree with me, Tom would agree with me, we still have a great relationship to all those guys.
Yeah.
We talk often, and it has expanded our influence. I don't want to exaggerate too much, but it's, 10,000 people or more when I think of what God has done. So I would really consider that a highlight, that we've been able to send guys out and let them do ministry elsewhere, kind of take a little bit of our philosophy maybe and kind of duplicate it in different, like, we got a guy leading a big church in Florida, a big church in Austin, Texas, a big church in San Diego. And it's not all about being big, but it does mean we're touching lives and reaching people. So that's a big deal to me. Another highlight, I don't want you to get too carried away with this one, but a highlight for me is having you come back. You know what I mean? I really thank God that God touched your heart and Joanna's heart to come back and be part of HDC and lead the troops where we are today. It's a new world, and I thank God that you're here, and so that's a highlight. How's that?
Yeah, great highlight for us. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
We couldn't be more grateful. Well, when you think about so many, and it's powerful, I think about people that we're connected to both at HDC and even at other churches that would just keep adding to that list of ways that they would say, man, I'm so grateful for Jack's influence, grateful for his leadership, grateful for his example, fill in the blank. And so that's just, it's a neat, that list goes a lot longer, but it's neat to hear you, frame them. When you think about kind of stepping into now kind of a new season, tell us about some of the roles that you're still planning on being involved in, whether at HDC or just in other churches' lives.
Yeah, one of the fun things was, all these years I've kind of participated in our administrative board, usually just sitting in the back and making wisecracks and being a pain,
very appreciated,
pain in the rear for some of the guys, but. It was interesting because, they were talking about new board members for our administrative board at our church. And I had mentioned to the guy that was leading that search that, why don't you talk to me in 2 or 3 years? Because I've always counseled churches, don't let the ex-pastors be on their board. And I thought, here I am being asked to serve on our administrative board, which is kind of a privilege. And I remember the chairman of the board at this present time serving again next year said, it would be great to have you back because you have institutional memory. And so all I thought that meant is you're old. That's what I thought of it.
You've seen a lot.
Yeah, you've seen it all. So, but anyway, that'll be starting, in this month. We actually had our first meeting back in January, and that's been a privilege in that way. But I still do a lot of outside ministry stuff, Todd, and I think you're familiar with much of it. I still lead a mentor group of 12 senior pastors. We meet monthly for, half a day or 2/3 of a day, and that's been a privilege to be part of that. If I add the HDC administrative board to my portfolio, that will mean 5 different boards.
Wow.
And enjoy all of those. Part of the trademark camping, which is kind of overseeing Thousand Pines, that's been a privilege to be part of that because our junior high kids go there each summer. I'm ex officio of a church board called Skyline down in San Diego that's led by our ex-staff member, Jeremy McGarity. My grandkids, 2 of them go to Hesperia Christian School, so I'm kind of on their board. And then our ex-business administrator started another ministry called Kingdom One, so I'm part of that. I'm part of, our own church board here. And so it's just been fascinating. And that's one place I still feel being kind of experienced and an old guy that I can make some contribution and participate at a level that might be helpful to that organization. I still coach 2 pastors from other churches, one in Carlsbad and one in Escondido, big church there, as big as we are. But that's fun for me to connect with them. And I still interview pastors for 3 different churches that I'm part of the process before they hire somebody. I am brought in for a couple hours to interview a prospective new leader for them. And so that's been a privilege. And sometimes I've had to say I wouldn't hire that guy, but probably 3/4 of the time we move ahead, and I'm just part of the process of that. So I'm still doing a lot of stuff, which I think is wonderful, and God's still, I think, using me in a way and where I can make contribution.
I love that. When I think about your role here on HDC's board and even the Hesperia Christian board, I think how cool, full circle, that was your life before HDC was over there as the administrator.
Yeah.
So I just think how cool is that? And that says a lot, Jack, about even those people wanting you back.
Yeah.
There's different things in different times where people will be like, well, that was really great while you were here, but we're moving on.
Well, the fun thing about that, Todd, most of them are gone. So they don't know.
Yeah, their memory.
They don't have a memory of my time there. But, it's fun. I was on staff there for 12 years, and I think 9, I was the lead pastor. You're not lead pastor, lead administrator, kind of the head of the school. And that was a great run for us. But, I really felt God clearly called me to come to High Desert Church, and originally when I actually came as an education pastor. That was my title because that was kind of my background. Yeah.
That's great. Well, kind of wrapping this up, when you think about HDC as a church family and you think about brand new year 2025, what would you want to just say to our church family?
There's so much to say. We could, you preach a message on that, but I do think part of life, I think, Todd, is to do your best to stay encouraged and trying to really know what that does. I mean, each person might be encouraged in different ways, but I do believe God wants us to stay encouraged. And one of our friends, your friend and mine, says the greatest thing that a pastor can do is to stay encouraged. Yeah. And I think it's true also for you as a daddy, a family man in your role and stuff like that. But I would say stay in the Word, stay in church regularly and stay connected with, other believers in community. Because I think it's easy for us when things are difficult to kind of pull away and live isolation. When you think about people that are discouraged or depressed at times, I think they don't want to participate in life. Yeah. And you have to guard against that. So if we have people out there even listening to this today, and you're maybe going through some difficult times, stay connected, stay in community. There's a lot of verses in the Bible. It says in Hebrews 10, where it says, not to forsake your assembling yourselves together, as is the habit of some, encouraging one another daily. So we need to have that. So we can't, quit in difficult times. I think we're, striving to change the world and we don't know what tomorrow brings. Sometimes even when I think about being an old guy now, why does God allow me to be 77 years old and still be here? There's a purpose. I might not know exactly what that is, but there is a purpose. I look back, Todd, and you didn't ask me some of the lowlights, but some of the lowlights were relationship to me. I loved Dan Barber. We lost him through the passing. We lost Tim Wheeler. We loved him. We lost David Beardsley. All those guys were great contributors to High Desert Church. Absolutely. Every one of them. Yeah. And I can't forget that because, and you know this because you're a team player and you lead as the team captain. And High Desert Church is not just Todd Arnett. It's not just Landon or Matt Colomb or Tim Sevilla or Mike Roberts or Mikey. It's all of you guys. That's who makes up this team. So when you get old, you start saying, do you want your life to count? And I'm still at that point. Yes, I do. And I need to focus as much as I can on eternal things. And when I don't focus on those eternal things, I think that's when you're facing difficulty and sometimes even tragedy. And I keep asking myself, what am I gripped with? What grips me? And I hope it's God's call. So anyway. That's awesome. Want me to preach longer? No. Okay.
Always. No,
Okay.
That's so great, Jack.
Yep. Thank you.
I'm grateful that we could get to hear a little bit about just this new season for you. Grateful. Yeah. I'd said it that weekend. You got a lot of gas in the tank still, so we're excited about all the things that God is still doing in and through you.
Yep. Yeah. So. Well, thank you, Todd. It's a privilege that you guys let me hang around. I'll still be a volunteer, so I'll be hanging around at different campuses and stuff like that. And I'm still probably the largest donor to our church.
That's right.
Just kidding.
And you give those big checks.
Yeah.
You had said, I hope I don't go out of pocket. Well, you finished that way.
Yeah, I did.
HDC, we love you guys. Thank you again, Pastor Jack.
Yeah.